Good morning, guys. Today we're gonna go over how to read an equity research report. Before I go into that, so far what we have done is that we have laid out our income statement, adjusted for our non-recurring items, and our variance is 0, which is always a good thing. Now what we're going to do, we're going to make our assumptions, our income statement assumptions, and then project our whole income statement. Now, we don't have enough knowledge about the industry to make our own assumptions, so in this case what we're going to use is we're going to use a thing called equity research report that has all the assumptions that are already there. Now, so you should have your model open along with a document called MS Morgan Stanley Equity Research Report. And once you have that open, you'll see basically a group in Morgan Stanley essentially focuses on the industry that Colgate is in and focuses on what exactly they're doing, what they're planning on doing, what do they think from their expertise is the company going to go. But the page that we're going to worry about the most is going to be page 4. These are all of the assumptions that they made. This is a 06 current year, 07 estimated. Whenever they have an E, that means estimated. 08 estimated, 09, 10, and 11. And after that, they don't have anything. So what we're going to do is that we're going to, actually, let me see if there's another one. Yeah, that's the one. So we're going to use this as kind of like the percentages like they have, for example, for change or growth in revenue. As you can see, we can also use our SG&A and whatnot. So that's what we're going to use. Let me see if there's anything else in here that we need to look at. Okay, nothing else. Alright, cool. Alright, so let me zoom in a bit so all of us can see exactly are we looking at. Okay, and we're gonna look at, before we're going into this, let's get our numbers for our 07, our 05, and our 06 before we go ahead and do anything else. So for our revenue growth, essentially we're gonna take our total revenues of our current year, divide that by the total revenues of the previous year minus 1. And what you're going to have is you're gonna have a growth rate, and you just copy that down like that. Okay, let me zoom in a bit because I know sometimes the video gets a little jacked up. Alright, so gross profit margin. Now, how do we calculate gross profit margin? Well, what we can do is we can take our total SG. We know that our SG&A, when we take out COGS, in our when we take out COGS, we get our gross profit, right? So that's what we essentially are going to do. So we're going to put a parentheses, total revenues, minus the COGS of that year. Typically the margin is just essentially what portion of that revenue is COGS or SG&A or etc. So that's what we're going to do. Oh, man, messed up over here. Dang. Alright. Let me just, for some reason E23 is here. So in order to calculate the margin, we're essentially going to find our whatever it is, in this case is gross profit, and we're going to divide it by our revenue. So let's get our revenue, and that is our gross profit margin. Let's see, that seems a little high. Let me just check before I do anything stupid. Okay, for some reason it's alright. Apparently it's going to be 1 minus. Yeah, okay, now I understand why. What we're going to do is we're going to take 1 minus, and we're going to find the SG&A margin, our pro forma SG&A, divide that by total revenues. Why are we doing that? Well, keep that in mind. Okay, fine. This portion, E26 over E22, is our SG&A margin, so the other portion should be our COGS. Our gross profit. That's just the rule. Think of it as well, this is even higher. I'm doing wrong. E24, E22, E26. Oh, I meant COGS. For some reason I took SG&A. You're supposed to take your COGS. Okay. SG&A and other margin. Well, you just take SG&A, right here, SG&A, and divide that by your total revenues. And that is your SG&A margin. Copy it down. EBIT margin, well, you just take your EBIT, and you divide that by total revenues. And then you copy that down. Okay, then you have your effective tax rate, which we already know is going to be effective tax rate. What we're going to do, we're going to take our pre-tax income. Basically, we're going to find the proportion of our taxes and our pre-tax income. So let's see what is the proportion of that. It should be like 30 something, yeah, 34%. And we're going to do that. Now, obviously, we do not know the future tax rates. Well, actually, I'm gonna get to this later. How to get to that part. But D&A growth essentially is going to be your depreciation and amortization. So you take that, you take the current year, and you divide it by your previous year, and you subtract by 1, and that is your growth. And you'll see a negative, but that happens. Don't freak out about that. Income and equity affiliates. Income and equity affiliates growth. You're essentially going to take your current year divided by your previous year minus 1. You get negative 76. Then you get minority interest growth. So you're going to take your minority interest of that current year. You're going to divide it by the previous year minus 1. Copy it down. Okay, and your dividend payout ratio is going to be basically it's going to be your dividends, common dividends, divide that by net income. That will be your ratio, your dividend payout ratio. Boom. Now, we have all of our stuff. You can also get the margin of this year, but that is not necessary because the important part is actually this portion, okay? So, this is where the Morgan Stanley's equity research comes in. We're going to pull out some numbers, and we're going to use them as our assumptions. So the first one we're going to look at is revenue assumption. So the first thing we're going to look at is our Morgan Stanley report, and you can see here that change versus prior, 7%, 7%, 6. So we're going to use 7, 6, 6, 6, 6, and it stops at 2011. So this is what I'm going to do. So my 2007 is going to be 7. Then after that it's going to be 6, 6, 6, 6, so 4 6s. Okay, let me see if this is right. Yeah. And what am I going to do? This is 2011, right? I still have all these years left to project out. Well, since I don't have enough information to make my own assumptions, what I'm going to say is, okay, that's not a problem. I'm just going to straight line it everything afterwards. So I'm going to basically take our 6% and straight line it, which means copy paste it all the way down. So that's what I'm going to do. There you go. So next thing we're going to look at is our gross profit margin, which is going to be, let me bring that down. Okay, gross profit margin. We have our gross profit over here. It's going to be 56.4, 57.6. Now, we have to look at 07, right? 56.4 should be already there. You will notice that some of these numbers do not exactly. Okay, this actually matches. Never mind. Sometimes it will not exactly match, but that's just tiny things that don't really matter. So we're gonna do 57.6, 58.9, 59.4, 57.6. We're gonna do 58.9, 58.9, 58.9, 59.4, 59.9, 59.4, 59.9, 59.9, and then we're going to get it 60.4. And after 2011, we don't have any information, so what we're going to do, we're going to straight line our 60.4. Okay? Next we have is SG&A and other margin. Now, you have to keep in mind that in some models, they don't consider SG&A and other to be together. They'll probably separate it. Well, what we're going to do in this case is we're going to take a weighted average of how much other is in proportion with SG&A margin. For example, basically we're going to find out, okay, over here, this particular year, we basically are going to go back and we're going to say, okay, a proportion of this is other, and we're going to just add that into our SG&A margin, right? So they're basically going to say that, but I don't want you guys to do that much work because I already have it over here. It's going to be there. You see 4782 13,118 point. You see that minus 0.044? Well, that's essentially how much that is other, okay? Now, why are we subtracting it? Well, the reason we're subtracting it is because it's already lumped in together. There's other things that are lumped in here. Let me see. There's other SG&A. Okay. Where did this come from? Okay, that was a straight line. And essentially we're doing 4782 13,118, and that number we got, let me just first show you where we got this number from. So 4782, which is our SG&A, divided by our margin, which is going to be our 13,118. And what we did was, okay, we found the proportion of our other expenses from the previous year, and then we subtracted it out of SG&A and other margin. And the reason we did that is because that's a way to count for SG&A and other margin, okay? So we're just using that just because we don't have enough information to find out how exactly what portion of this is other. That's why we're going to do minus 0.0044 for all of them, okay? So what we're going to do, okay, so we did 4782 13,118, so we're going to do 4782 4782 divided by our revenue, which is going to be 13,118. Then we're going to do minus 0.0044, and it's so minute, so it really doesn't make any difference. Oh, I didn't even put it up here, so it's going to be SG&A 4782. So divide that by 4782 plus equal sign. There, 36.4. So we have one down. So next one to go. This is very tedious, but this is very necessary to have an accurate SG&A. Actually, to be honest, you really don't have to do this because it is so small. 0.0044 is smaller than a penny, right? So we don't really have to consider it. But you know, since it's here, typically you're gonna run into situations like you have no information about the other, so you have to kind of BS it and try to find something else. 551.72 5172 divided by 5172 13,913 13,913 minus 0.0044. Perfect. We just cross this out. Okay, then we're going to do it again. It's going to be 5483 divided by 14,752. 14,752. Subtract 0.0044. Then the next one is going to be 5811. 5811 divided by 5811 15637. 15637 minus 0.0044, and I think that was my last year. Now one more left. 6156. 6156. Divide that by 6156. Divide that by 16570. 16570 minus 0.0044. And you can see, like, it doesn't make that big of a difference, but we have to do that. Now we're going to straight line it. Okay, so our EBIT margin. Well, what is our EBIT? Well, let's look up and see how do we actually calculate our EBIT. Our EBIT is our total revenues, okay, minus our COGS, minus our SG&A, and then we get our operating EBIT, right? Well, we do typically we're going to do the same thing over here. Instead, we're going to take our gross profit margin, which is essentially revenue minus COGS. So COGS are already subtracted out of the margin. And now we're just going to subtract out SG&A, and then we're just going to get our EBIT. So essentially, we're just doing 57.6 minus 36.4. And then we're just going to go across the line like this. And then you can see, you know, okay, it is pretty self-explanatory. Everything is in line with each other, so that's good. As for tax rate, we don't have enough information on the tax rate. So in this situation, we don't know where exactly taxes are going to be in the future. So we're going to straight line this as well. So we're going to copy that. And again, what do I mean by straight line? Well, I mean that I'm going to take my previous number, press enter, right? Sorry. And then I'm just going to copy this by pressing Control C, going across. That's called straight line. That means holding that constant essentially. As for DNA growth, we're going to leave that as 7% because we don't have sufficient information about that. So it's going to be typically the same as revenues growth. And we're making an assumption over here when the company grows and expands its revenue, it's also going to have more depreciation costs due to the fact that it's going to buy more plants. So that's the assumption I'm making. Same with here. The more that's where we linked it to our revenue. And same thing with minority interest. Essentially, we're saying that, okay, when the company expands, it's going to expand its operations along with its minority and equity interests as well. Dividend payout. Well, we do not know how much exactly dividends are going to be paid out in the future. In this case, we're just going to straight line it, as you can see. Okay, so we're almost done with our income statement portion. Now we just have to link everything together. So how do we do that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press equal. I'm going to take my previous number, right, and I'm going to multiply it by 1 plus, okay, and what number do I multiply? Is going to be our growth, which is 7%. And you close it, and you press enter, and this is basically 7% growth that we just saw. I hope you understand that. So basically our revenues grew 7%. Now let's do the same for our COGS. And which COGS line do we use? This one or this one? Well, we're going to use our pro forma one, since technically that is our pro forma. We do not know where exactly is our COGS going to be in the future. I mean, we do not know if there's any non-recurring items or not. So to make things simplify everything, we're just going to put in a pro forma. But we have gross profit margin. So how do we find out our COGS? Well, again, how do we find gross profit? We do revenues minus COGS, right? Well, this is our gross profit portion, right? Well, since 57.6% is gross profit, that means the other percentage is going to be our COGS. So that's what we essentially are going to do over here. We're going to do is we're going to take our revenue, we're going to multiply it, do 1 minus our gross profit margin, and basically we're going to find our COGS margin, if you want to say so. And here it is, 55.52, which makes sense, flows together well. And then we're going to do SG&A other, which we do have a margin for that. Whenever it comes to margin, and this is why margins are so useful, because whenever you multiply your margin by your revenues, you get that number, you get your SG&A, and that's what we did over here, okay? And our operating EBIT is essentially how we calculated before. It's going to be our revenues minus our COGS minus our SG&A. Non-operating pro forma, we're just going to straight line this simply because we don't have enough information about that. And our interest expense, we are going to get to that later on in the financial statement model. This is probably going to be the most difficult part of the model. Okay, so our pre-tax EBIT or EBT is going to be basically our interest. Well, actually, it's going to be our operating profit minus. Oh, I took the wrong one. It's going to be our operating profit minus our interest plus our non-operating income. And there you go. And then we're going to, our taxes is going to be our pre-tax multiplied by, and then we're just going to take our tax effective rate, which is going to be 31.09%. That is our tax. As you can see, it's a big number. Let me see if this is it. Taxes. Yeah, that's how I calculated it. Let me see. I just multiply by now. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure because I don't want to teach you guys anything wrong. As you can see, there's a lot of decimal places. We're just going to fix that by pressing Control 1. And you're going to have a format cells windows pop up. And you just go to number, go to 2, and just press enter. And then you have that. Okay, then you have minority interest, which essentially grows with revenue. So we're going to do our previous equity, multiply by 1, plus our income and equity growth, and close that. And our minority interest is going to be the same. So we're going to take our previous minority interest, multiply by 1 plus our growth and minority interest, which is 7%. Close it, enter. And then our net income, which is going to be basically our pre-tax income minus our taxes, okay, plus our equity and income, and then we're going to do plus, which technically is a minus, our minority interest. Now let's fix our decimals by doing what? We're going to press Control 1, got formatted cells, press tab, go to number, press tab again, and press enter. There you go. Let's Control 1 again because I don't want it to be a negative, I want it to be a parentheses. So I'm going to go down until I have, okay, this right here, parentheses, or this parentheses, not the red one, there you go. And then our common dividends, well, how do we find our dividends payout ratio? Well, we're just going to take our net income, multiply it by our dividends payout ratio right here. Press enter, so we have our dividends. Okay, now, okay, and our EBIT, well, we had our EBIT over here, which is right here, so we have our EBIT. Our depreciation and amortization, like we said, is going to grow with our revenues, so we're going to do 1 plus our growth with our revenue, which is right here, 7%. Close it. Our EBITDA is going to be our EBIT plus add back our depreciation and amortization. Our preferred dividends, we're just going to straight line it from our previous dividend just because we don't have information on that. And we're going to essentially take our net income and we're going to add back our dividends, as you can see. Cool. Awesome. And our basic shares outstanding, we do not have information about that. Same thing with our EPS. Our diluted shares, we're just gonna straight line that as well since we have no information. Net income for our diluted shares is gonna be from, and this is what we learned during our earlier workshops. That's why I'm kind of breezing through it. So if you have any questions, just look at the first videos of the income statement analysis. Stock options and restrictions, we do not know information about that, but we will know it later on. Same thing with our diluted shares. And we're going to worry about this portion later. So we're done with our first column. So you're probably asking yourself, so we do this the whole thing? No. Just press shift. Take it all the way down. And you just press copy. Press shift again. Go all the way down to the last row. And press enter. Voila. And you just, in a snap of a button, just projected your whole income statement. So you see what we did here, we basically made assumptions and we use those assumptions to project our income statement. Now, obviously, this is not necessarily accurate enough. It can never be accurate. They're projections. They're never going to be accurate. But the whole point of it is like, okay, let's give it a ballpark and see how close can we get it to. So typically you're going to have, if you don't have enough information, you're either going to average out from the previous historicals, straight line it, or you have management's guidance on those type of information. So this concludes our income statement, and I hope you enjoyed it while it lasts, because now we're going to get into our balance sheet. Alright, well, see you later. Bye.